6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the Sparks Planning Commission meeting of March 7th, 2019. Thank you all for being here. We'll move on to item number 2 on our agenda. That's roll call. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Carey.
Present.
Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Blanco.
Here.
Commissioner Brock.
Here.
Commissioner Hewens.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson. Absent. Commissioner Vanderwall.
Here.
Assistant City Attorney Allison McCormick.
Here.
Assistant Community Services Director Development Armando Ordonez.
Here. Thank you very much for that. The commission does sends its regards to Commissioner Peterson is homesick. Hope you get home. Hope you get well soon, Commissioner Peterson. Before item number 3, public comment, I wanted to give our attorney an opportunity to make an announcement concerning a noticing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Allison McCormick, Assistant City Attorney. There was notice published regarding an ordinance addressing marijuana establishments and drive-throughs. That item will not be considered tonight, so if you are here on that item and wish to give public comment, you should do that during the general public comment time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 3, that is public comment. This is our one of 2 regular public comment periods that we have on our meetings. You have 3 minutes to talk about anything on or off the agenda. I didn't receive any public comment cards. Was there anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment at this time? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment period and we'll move on to item number 4. That's approval of the agenda. I did have a request from staff. There were no items to strike from the agenda, but we wanted to move item number 7. That's presentation on the utility rate study. Wanted to move that one to be heard after item number 10. So it'd be the last item that we'll hear tonight. That was the only other change. Does the commission have any other changes or suggestions or a possible motion?
Mr. Chair,
Vanderwall.
I recommend approval of the agenda with the changes that you requested.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Vanderwall, a second by Commissioner Blanco. Is there any comments or questions about the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item number 5. That's approval of the minutes. The first item up is approval of the February 5th, 2019 Planning Commission study session minutes. Did any commissioners have any changes or suggestions to the 40 pages of study session minutes from February? Would any commissioners care to make a motion concerning those minutes? Commissioner Vanderwall.
Mr. Chair, I recommend approval of the minutes from the February 5th Planning Commission study session.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Vanderwall to approve. Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll give that one to Commissioner Blanco again with the second. Any comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approval of the minutes for the February 5th Planning Commission study session, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Move on to the second set of minutes. That's approval of the meeting minutes from our February 7th Planning Commission regular meeting. Those 85 pages of minutes look pretty good to me.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Vanderwall.
I move for approval of the February 7th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Vanderwall. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I second. This is Commissioner Brock.
Thank you, Commissioner Brock, for the second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Meeting minutes are approved. Let's move on to item number 6. That is informational items. Do we have any informational items from staff?
Chairman Carey, members of the Planning Commission, Armando Ornelas, Assistant Community Services Director for the record.
We have no informational items.
Thank you for that. I did have one quick informational item for the commission. The Audie Boulevard Wells Avenue corridor studies moving forward by the RTC. The RTC is going to be having a public meeting concerning that project on Thursday, March 28th from 5:30 to 7 o'clock at the Washoe County Senior Center on 9th Street. That's a project that's been on the books for a couple years, and it's very important to the city's redevelopment district along Audi Boulevard. So I'd encourage anyone in the public to attend. That public meeting again is going to be held on March 28th, 5:30 to 7 o'clock at the Washoe County Senior Center. Any other informational items from the commission? Thank you very much for that. We'll now move on to number 8 on the agenda. This is a public hearing item. That's PCN 004, the Legends Car Wash.
Chairman Carey, members of the Planning Commission, Ian Crittenden, Senior Planner, for the record. This is a request for a conditional use permit to construct and operate a car wash at 485 Sparks Boulevard. Car washes are permitted in the Legends plan development. The handbook specifies that all uses that are permitted in the TC zoning district are permitted in the Legends handbook, and the TC zoning district does allow car washes by conditional use permit. As you can see on this vicinity map, the site is outlined in cyan. It's here sandwiched between Sparks Boulevard and the Target building, just south of the Park Vista apartment complex, and just north of, I think it's Jimmy John's and some other businesses in that building to the south. The proposed fully automated car wash is proposed at 3,596 square feet. You can see here on the site plan how that building will fit on the site. The car washing machinery and equipment would be located inside of the building. Vehicles would enter the car wash from the north side and go through and come out the south side. And then there are vacuum stations here on the west side between the car wash building and the Target. The applicant has proposed hours of operation of 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. as 7 days a week is what they refer to as normal business hours, and then 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. during summer business hours. Proposed condition number 3 would limit them simply to 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. 7 days a week. There are potential concerns regarding noise from this use. However, because of the orientation of the building, having the entrance on the north side and the exit on the south side, the particular concerns about the dryers, which are kind of the loudest exterior noise, would be pulled the furthest to the south, furthest away from those adjacent residential units to the north. Also, there's limitations on the hours of operation. And as mentioned, that housing to the north is in excess of 100 feet from this structure, further mitigating the impacts that the potential noise would have. The comprehensive land use designation for the site is MUC, that's mixed use district, in the mixed use commercial version of the mixed use district. The site is zoned NUD, or New Urban District, in the Legends plan development governed by that Legends handbook. The landscaping proposed for this site complies with the requirements of Sparks Municipal Code Section 20.04.06, that's the landscaping and screening section, and the landscaping requirements of the handbook. Chairman Carey voiced some concerns at this study session meeting on Tuesday about headlights shining into adjacent windows for that housing to the north. Staff went out to the site and tried to check for potential impacts of headlights. There's actually mature landscaping in this area here. That's actual Legends landscaping that was put there when the center was finished. That actually blocks basically all of the light that would be potentially generated by the queuing of cars at this location. Additionally, because of the hours of operation, the need to screen headlights should be considerably reduced, as most of their hours of operation would be during the daytime hours, so they should have very little nighttime hour need for headlights at the car wash. The Legends handbook does not have parking requirements specific to car washes. The required parking for car washes per Sparks Municipal Code Section 20.04.009, which is the parking and loading section, is 1 space per 1,500 square feet of building gross floor area. The proposed building is 3,596 square feet, so 3 parking spaces would be required. The parking requirements in the handbook are not specific to this kind of use. They are just general parking requirements for the Legends development, and they are 4.25 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet, which would require a total of 16 parking spaces. As submitted, the proposed development plan does show 16 parking spaces, so this proposal is in compliance with both City of Sparks requirements for parking as well as the handbook's requirements for parking. 2 trip generation letters were submitted in reference to this application. The first, prepared by Katie Anderson and Associates, projected that as a standalone use, the proposed car wash would generate 78 trips in the weekday PM peak hour. The city's traffic study criteria specify that a full traffic analysis is required when that peak hour trip generation exceeds 80 trips. City staff also asked the applicant to submit or assess the parking, or not the parking, but the traffic requirements in context of the traffic analysis for Legends as a whole. The second traffic analysis submitted by AECom stated that the proposed use would generate approximately 1,000 trips a day. However, that AECom letter also states that 50% of those, or 500 of those trips, would not be net new trips. They would be existing trips that would add on the car wash as an additional trip. So of that 500 trips, 300 would normally be assumed for traditional retail development or commercial development at this location. So we're looking at a net increase of 200 trips per day. The AECom analysis showed that the PM peak hour trips for a car wash on the site would only increase by 20 for that PM peak, over the estimated for a traditional retail. That PM peak of 20 additional is well below the requirement for additional traffic analysis. The AECom letter also stated that no traffic capacity enhancements would be needed based on this increase in trips. It also stated that the increase in trips from the proposed car wash is not anticipated to affect the overall level of service of the intersections of Sparks Boulevard with Lincoln Way. The city's transportation manager has reviewed these trip generation letters and concurs with their findings. There are 5 findings required for conditional use permits. Finding C1 looks for conformance with the comprehensive plan. The existing zoning is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan, but the proposed use does support goals MG1, which is to support economic vitality by providing a non-residential land use base, and policy CF1, which requires city services to be available. A car wash is a non-residential land use, and the site is in an established commercial center where city services are provided. This request conforms to the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, even if the zoning is not in compliance with the comprehensive plan land use. Finding C2 addresses compatibility with surrounding land use. The properties to the south and the east, we'll go back to the site plan real quick, or the vicinity map may work better. To the east and the south are also within Legends and are compatible as additional commercial uses with this proposed use. The property to the east is zoned industrial and is also across both Sparks Boulevard quite a ways. So staff did not see any potential compatibility concerns there. The property to the north is developed as multifamily residential. The multifamily residential to the north is the most likely to have compatibility concerns. However, if we go back and we look at the site plan, the north-south orientation with the louder interior uses being pushed further to the south as the blowers, the dryers, the placement of all the car washing equipment, including the vacuums inside, and the limitation on the hours of operation help to mitigate those noise impacts. And as I mentioned earlier, the separation of more than 100 feet from this proposed building to the nearest residential building also helps to mitigate that concern. Finding C3 looks for impairment of natural resources. This site is within the Legends plan development and is an established shopping center. Staff does not believe the approval of this conditional use permit to allow a car wash would impair the availability of natural resources or the region's ability to support its population. Finding C4 requires that identified impacts be addressed. Staff identified parking and traffic as the primary potential impacts. As discussed earlier, the proposed parking complies with both the parking standards of the handbook and of the city code. And the traffic analysis shows that this use will not require any additional improvement to adjacent roadway network or have any impacts on the level of service. And finally, finding C5 requires proper noticing. Public notice was published in the Reno Gazette Journal on February 22nd. In addition, 47 notices were mailed to owners of property within 500 feet of the subject property on February 21st. And the Planning Commission meeting functions as a public hearing for this item. Staff does believe that the findings can be made and is recommending approval of this request. That is the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Is the applicant's representative here? Would you like to say some words? Come on up to the, just please give your name for the record and.
Good evening, Chair, Planning Commissioners. My name is Mark McElvain with CRM Architects. I'm here on behalf of Quick Quack Car Wash. I want to thank Ian and planning staff for working with us to get this project to this point. We agree on all the conditions that they have given us, and I'm just here mainly to ask or answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mark. Did the commission have any questions for the applicant? Mark, I had one. I'm not sure if you can answer it or not. Concerning noise, I was wondering if you knew the decibel range or general area of the vacuums on the outside as well as the blowers at the end of the car wash.
That I couldn't tell you and be precise.
Okay.
I can tell you the blowers, they have done studies for the projects that they have done. They have reduced them from 14 blowers down to 12 just to kind of help mitigate the noise. The blowers would be approximately 200 feet away from residential. In all of the areas that we have worked in, we have always tried to get it down to at least 60 dBA. I can't guarantee you that it would be here, but I know it's far enough and we've done everything that we could, at least to this point, to reduce the noise and the placement of the blowers,
Okay.
which seems to be the biggest, noise makers.
And so the blowers, that's the one inside the.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what
Yes,
about
sir.
the vacuums on the outside?
The vacuums are like a central vacuum system. They're enclosed by a 6-foot or 8-foot high masonry enclosure, so it's all down below.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. That's helpful. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Fewens.
Commissioner Fewens. I want to congratulate your marketing company on a great name.
Thank you. And the duck's name is Quackles,
Okay, wonderful.
in case if you were wondering.
The record, yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Had a little bit of concern on, our finding C3, which is the natural resources. Our East Truckee Drain is approximately about 200 feet to the east of this project. On the wastewater that is generated by the car wash, is it completely contained within the site?
The wastewater, you talking about the stormwater or the sewer?
If I go in and wash my car after being out mudding and dirt, and
Correct.
where does that water go, or is it self-contained?
They have 3 1,500-gallon clarifiers. The first one's an oil separator. The second 2 are clarifiers. The third one is where they actually reclaim the water back into the system. They lose about 10 gallons, 12 gallons per wash.
Thank you. But it's all self-contained within the unit?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fewens. Any other commissioner questions? Okay, I think you're off the hook, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will bring that back to, sorry, this is a public hearing item. This is a public hearing item. Would any members of the public wish to speak on this proposed conditional use permit? I didn't receive any comment cards, so open up the public comment period at this time. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. We'll bring this back to the commission. Maybe if staff could come up if there are any questions for staff on this item. Okay. Maybe at this time we'll entertain a motion on this item.
Mr.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Commissioner Reed.
I move to approve the conditional use permit CU 19-0002. Do I have too many zeros? Associated with PCN 19-0004, adopting findings C1 through C5 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the 4 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Blanco with the second. Was there any comments or questions concerning the motion? I had a quick comment to make. You know, I certainly appreciate staff going out and take a look at the light situation. I live near a full-service car wash, and that's certainly an issue in my area. And I think, you know, when you look at these car washes, the biggest concerns are obviously traffic, noise, and then, you know, the headlights, I think, is a secondary one. I would encourage, and I know it's rare that we as a planning commission see car washes. You know, there's usually typically approved by the administrative process. So I would encourage staff to continue to take a close look at headlights in the future when they are reviewing these car washes. But I will be supporting the motion. I think the location of the existing landscaping seems acceptable. I appreciate the applicant enclosing the vacuum areas. I think that will, and the hours of operation will go a long way to help mitigate any impacts to the residential to the north. Any other comments? Seeing that, I'll call a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll move on to our next agenda item, number 9. This is a general business item. This is PCN 19004. That's architectural elevations for the car wash.
Thank you, Chairman Carey, members of the Planning Commission. Once again, Ian Crittenden for the record, Senior Planner. As we've been discussing, this car wash is in the Legends Plan Development. It is at 485 Sparks Boulevard. The Legends Plan Development Handbook requires that all new construction have the architectural elevations approved by the Planning Commission. The proposed elevations, which we can see, click through to these. Proposed elevations for the car wash building are required to conform to the design standards of the handbook. The proposed elevations incorporate a variety of facade materials and colors in a palette consistent with the existing buildings in the Legends. Building walls are articulated in both color and plane, and as well as height and material on all exterior sides. Examples of the materials and colors that will be used are Monastery Brown, Decisive Yellow, Northern Plains, Lulled Beige, Sandalwood Beige, Snowbound. They will also incorporate cultured stone and a storefront in medium bronze. Those materials and colors are consistent with the and complementary to the colors and materials used in the existing buildings at Legends Plan Development. Staff therefore believes that the proposed building elevations meet the standards stated in the handbook. I did include a lot of sheets that were submitted to us in here just so that there was plenty of information for both the Planning Commission and the public to be able to look through if they wanted to really dive into this. Staff is recommending approval of this request. However, if the Planning Commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And as you know, the applicant is here if they need any questions answered by the applicant.
Thank you. And did the commission have any questions on the architectural elevations? Okay. Would the commission like to make a motion on this item?
Commissioner, I'll make a motion
Okay, Commissioner Reed.
for 2.
All right.
I move to approve the architectural elevations for a car wash building approximately 3,596 square feet in size and fulfillment of the requirements set forth in the Legends at Sparks Marina Plan Development Handbook.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Is there a second on the motion?
Second?
She beat you to it, Commissioner
That's okay.
Vanderwall. That's Commissioner Brock with the second. Any questions or comments on the motion? Okay, hearing none, I will call a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ian. So we'll move on to our next agenda item. This is item number 10, consideration, and possible approval of the City of Sparks Annual Report to Regional Planning. Mr. Rundle, welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey, Chairman Carey. On Tuesday at the Sparks study session, a notice public meeting, staff gave a robust overview of the annual report that has been presented to the Sparks Planning Commission. So I'll save the Planning Commission that time today at the public hearing unless there are any questions. Staff is asking that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the Regional Planning Commission of the 2018 annual report. And that will conclude my presentation.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Did any commissioners have any questions or comments on the report? I had a comment. I'll reiterate my comments that I made at the study session. You know, I certainly concur with staff's analysis that to strike emerging employment centers from the regional plan. I think from my perspective, I know for at least 30, probably going on 40 years, the city has tried to encourage professional office land uses in the Spanish Springs Valley. When the council considered annexing and moving into the Spanish Springs Valley, it was a consideration to balance employment and growth in that same proximity. So I would encourage us that moving forward that the city continue to do a good job of trying to promote professional office land uses and try to encourage the policy. I think it's policy MG3 in that, and I think that's going to be continued. That's going to be an important thing to continue to do so in the future and to protect those professional office land uses, emerging employment centers, whatever you want to call it. That's a critical land use in the city. So I'll get off my soapbox and return this to the commission for a possible motion or for further discussion. Commissioner Fewens.
Yeah, I've got a motion. I move to endorse and forward to the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission and Governing Board the City of Sparks annual report for calendar year 2018.
Thank you, Commissioner Fewens. Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second that.
A second by Commissioner Blanco. Any discussion or comments on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion to adopt the report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those in favor, nay. The ayes have it. Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks, Jim. We'll move on to item number 7 on our agenda. That's the presentation and briefing on the City of Sparks 2018 Utility Rate Study. Mr. Martini.
Thanks, Ian. All right. Thank you, Chairman Carey, members of the commission. I am John Martini, your Community Services Director. It's Diane's fault that we're here tonight. I gave a presentation to the Sparks Citizens Advisory Committee on our 2018 utility rate study. It was well received, and Commissioner Vanderwell thought it was a good idea to give a repeat performance to the Planning Commission. As you are well aware, we all pay utility rates for those of us who live in Sparks. We pay our bills every quarter. Our sewer bill's on there. There's a charge for storm drain, and of course the river flood fee that the city used to finance the North Truckee Drain upgrades. We all pay that bill. There is a process to timely update those rates, and that is what I'm going to walk you through tonight, as well as I'm going to give you the background information I gave the Sparks City Council for the study that does include some difficult questions that have been asked about the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility, with particularity to where our capacity currently sits. The data I'm showing you is the same data that was given to the council. I apologize it took us till the 1st of March to get this done, but we had some pretty busy agendas in January and February. So while it may be a little dated, the numbers I'm going to show you haven't changed that much in the 6 months. But most of this data is relative to October. So as I said, we do provide sanitary sewer, storm drain, and effluent management services to our residents and businesses. The operational and capital costs associated with these services are basically funded through the collections of fees that we all pay as residents and businesses. It's often called enterprise funded, which separates it from the general fund. So these are fees for services. We are bound by law to ensure that the services we do provide are adequate to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens and businesses, to be in conformance with federal, state, and local regulations when it comes to sanitary sewer and storm drain management and effluent management in particular. There are a lot of regulations placed upon us. And then with that, we are allowed from time to time to make adjustments to these fees to ensure that we are providing the proper level of service. So the rate study, and Diane, this is a little different. I provided a little more background for the Planning Commission. They're typically undertaken every 5 years. We try and line them up with those 5-year CIP increments that move through the system. It would be hard to do a rate study every year. The study takes about a year just to do the study. So 5 years has worked well for us. It is prepared by your city staff, as well as we use a third-party consultant that does kind of overlooks the work, make sure that it makes sense, it's in conformance with standard of practice. This year we used Far West Engineering, a local firm, and we worked very well together. The study includes an analysis of our customer base, how many of us are out there paying, our existing financial data for what the previous years have been, as well as the current and future operational and capital cost estimate needs of those 3 systems. The results of the study are presented in the form of a cash flow model. So we work through all this data, we create a cash flow model that incorporates the needs of the CIP, the operational expenses. It predicts income and expenses for a 5-year period, and it shows basically at the bottom of the line, how's your cash balance doing? Are you going negative? Do you have too much cash for the fees? It's a very flexible model. It's fairly simplistic and robust, and has proven itself to be a good tool to take what is complicated technical and financial data, break it down into a model that can, I won't say be easily understood, but can be worked with elected and appointed officials. Using the cash flow model, we typically will create several scenarios for funding options. You can modify user rates, you can change connection fees. There are assumptions on future inflation that can be played with, and as well as assumptions on future growth rate, which I think will be interesting to the commission, since all that growth kind of really starts with this body. So on October 8th of last year, we got all the results of our modeling, prepared the scenarios, and then we were lucky to be given the opportunity to meet with our city council in a workshop environment and spend some time with them going through each scenario. At this workshop meeting, I did provide the Sparks City Council with some background because, as you know, we had a big boom in the early 2000s. We were then subject to what I call a depression. Our plant back in 2004, the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility, was starting to look at the future, then everything stopped. We have come back to life. You've seen quite a bit of development activity come before you. Building permits certainly aren't back to where they were back in those days, but they're healthy. And we are starting to see some challenges at the treatment facility. So the question I'm asked probably most often is, what is the capacity of Tumwater? It's that industrial facility at the end of the valley down there next to the river. Most of us, well, I'm there quite a bit, but most folks have maybe taken a tour but have never actually been on the premises. Our treatment plant is governed through a state permit, which allows us to discharge the treated wastewater, known as effluent, into the Truckee River. Our Truckee River is one of the most protected waterways in the United States. As Michael Drinkwater, your plant manager, will often, if you haven't heard him say it, It's a river that connects two lakes that includes an endangered and a threatened species. It is a beautiful river. And, you know, the regulations that were put in place back in the 80s and 90s were intended to preserve the integrity and the welfare and the safety of that lake, particularly for fish. If wastewater treatment isn't done properly, you cause algal blooms in the water, which absorbs the oxygen out of the water and will kill trout very quickly. So we are very limited in what we can discharge, and I'll go through some of those parameters with you. Our current discharge permit has two components. We're allowed to receive 40 million gallons in the front door, known as headworks, but we are subsequently also regulated that on the back, you know, the pipe coming out of the plant, we're only allowed to discharge 500 pounds of nitrogen per day to the Truckee River. That is known as a waste load allocation. So what is the capacity, or what is our City of Sparks capacity at Tumwharf? So as many of you know, Tumwharf is jointly owned by Reno and Sparks. Our ownership is 31.37% of the plant. Reno owns 68.63%. So using those ownership percentages, our influent, or the sewage coming into the plant, we own 31.37% of the 40 million gallons a day. That's 12.55 million gallons a day. And then of what's allowed to go out into the river in the form of nitrogen, it is not the only constituent that is regulated, but it is kind of the problem child at this point. Of that 500 pounds, if you will, Sparks owns 156.85 pounds of nitrogen. How much sewer service has Sparks committed through approval of new development? I'm sure as you've sat here and seen new development proposals come in for your review and approval, you've probably wondered how we doing at the plant. So we underwent an effort to really sum up where we're at, what's under construction, and what we've promised. So as of October 5th, that was the date we summed these numbers up. So sewer allocation, or a promise to provide sewer service, is done currently in two forms. A will serve letter is typically associated with final projects, so your final maps that come off the tentative maps that this body reviews. We do issue to the state of Nevada Department of Environmental Protection an intent to serve letter with each tentative map you've reviewed. Then we also are required to issue will serves for multifamily and commercial projects. So the commercial is fairly de minimis. I've just, in this briefing, I've really focused on housing, in that it is the largest sewer generator in our community. So for final maps, we have 1,312 lots that we've promised sewer to. For tentative maps, we're at 2,984 lots. Will serves for our multifamily projects are 2,304 units. Total new development commitment is exactly 6,600. I don't want to give the Planning Commission the impression that we don't also consider commercial and industrial uses. I just did not include them because they are a small number at this time. So how much sewer capacity does Sparks have left? So our current flow back in October, and it hasn't really changed that much, it varies month to month. The 24-month average influent flow that is associated to our Sparks sewer lines was 9.94 million gallons a day. These numbers are all in millions of gallons a day. That's what you deal with treatment plants. So the single family, or what we've approved through tentative and final maps, equates to 0.77 million gallons a day. The multifamily commitment is 0.41 million gallons a day for a total Sparks, just Sparks inside our corporate boundary, of 11.13 million gallons a day. We have leased capacity. It was done years and years ago to Sun Valley to provide sewer service to that community. That lease is for 2.1 million gallons a day. Their current flow, we meter their flows so that we can bill them appropriately, is, at the time this was written, was 1.24 million gallons a day. So there's 0.86 million MGD left on their lease. For the development north of La Posada, Eagle Canyon, Washoe County, we have a service agreement with them that is currently reserves 0.78 MGD for the county. They're, at the time of this analysis, they were flowing at 0.67, so there's 0.11 MGD left on that reservation. All those numbers added together in bold come to 12.1 million gallons a day of committed capacity. So if we look at the influent criteria of our discharge permit, there's still 0.45 million gallons a day. We're getting close to being at capacity. Those 0.45 million gallons per day equate to approximately 2,500 additional equivalent dwelling units or single-family homes. Now, if we look at the nitrogen discharge, it's a little bit different story. Of that ownership of 156.58 pounds of nitrogen, giving the typical discharge criteria and chemistry of the plant as it's done today with its current technology, Sparks will have consumed its portion of the nitrogen share of the waste load allocation at 11.7 million gallons a day. So the question in your mind is, how do we increase this capacity? Our plant is one of probably the most advanced plants in the country because no one else has the Truckee River to discharge to. We are capable right now of treating 100% of inorganic nitrogen with, for any of you who are chemistry buffs, that's ammonia, nitrate, and nitrite. We remove almost 100% of that. What we're not able to remove with the current plant technology is something called dissolved organic nitrogen. That is what is getting through the system and going to the river. Our permit is written to total nitrogen, so all nitrogen species are considered in the discharge. It is the dissolved organic nitrogen that is starting to build up. Michael Drinkwater and I, as well as some other really smart kids in the room, advanced nitrogen treatment of dissolved organic nitrogen has really not been done anywhere in the country. About 4 years ago, we started work with UNR to find some technologies to treat this species of nitrogen. The report is of the 3 different methods of treatment we looked at, one of them stood out as being probably the most efficient and economic. It's advanced coagulation and filtration. We would not treat the entire 30+ million gallons a day going through the plant. We'd look to side stream a portion and cut this down to stay within our permit. So for a 3 to 6 million gallon a day side stream treatment process, we're looking at about $30 million to build it. Another interesting fact that we came upon as we looked at this year's rate study. In years previous, in 2014, during the kind of the end of that recession, when we were doing that rate study, the multifamily users came forward to the City of Sparks City Council with data showing that they were about 80% of a single family home. The council agreed to charge them a reduced rate based on that data, and that was in our code until recently. An analysis of water use by residential type, if you will, separating multifamily residences from single family. You can see that the apartment group that came forward to lobby was right. Those recession years when vacancy rates were very high, they were running roughly 80%. And then as we came out of the recession and those apartments started to fill back up, we're actually showing that multifamily use, and remember this is old apartments and new apartments, you have to group them together as a customer class, is on par, if not a little bit higher than a single family home. So we also showed the proposed capital improvement plan for the sewer enterprise fund to the council. Anything in yellow is new stuff that needs to be built at the plant to handle additional future load due to development that is separated out. There's a reason for that. We wanted to take our operational or normal everyday costs, and that does include rehabilitation of the plant. Part of our sewer user rate does go to rehab what's already there because we're using it every day. But the new stuff that's needed, we separated out and used those costs in our connection fee analysis for this year. So as you can see from the Tumworth CIP, Over the next 5 years, there's about $12.5 million needed for upgrades to the plant, assuming the proportional share split based on ownership. So these numbers are 31.37% of the total CIP for Tumwharf. This is Sparks' share I'm showing you. And then the cost to just rehab what's already there for the current users is $13.86 million. So one thing I've learned as I've gotten more familiar with the plant and started working with its management group, it's a very expensive place. There is nothing cheap at Tumwharf. Then, of course, our sewer enterprise fund dollars, the fees we pay, also are the funding mechanism to support the collection system. So again, we split rehab CIP items from new needs due to growth. Everything in yellow is a new need or an expansion of that sewer line system for growth above it. And then the stuff in gray that you see, those items are what we would call the normal everyday rehabilitation of the existing system. So there's about $3.5 million needed for future expansion. That will come out of connection fees. And then the user rate will fund $9.8 million of the next 5 years worth of rehab work that's done on our existing system. The Storm Drain Enterprise Fund is a lot simpler to model. It is our fund only. We don't have leases with other people. We don't have a partner that we share ownership with. It's a little more consolidated. As again, same kind of format. You can see the projects. You can see the split between what's needed to upgrade for growth, what's needed to maintain the current system. Over the next 5 years, we're showing $5 million worth of expansion needs, as well as $7.5 million worth of rehab on the existing system. So to the model itself, I'll speed up here a little bit. Now we're getting to where the council gets to play with numbers, where they can ask us to change a number in the model and see what happens. So the model includes inputs for annual user fee increases, the connection fee increase, connection fee increases post after the first year. We typically will do a 1-year bump and then index them to inflation. Operating lines, inflation rates for the lines maintenance, inflation rates for Tumwharf operating expenses. Tumwharf is very subject to inflation rates because a lot of chemicals are used out there and they run at market rate. One thing we learned during hurricanes in the Gulf is chemicals get very expensive because they go into short supply. Then we have to also estimate customer growth rates due to new development and people moving here over the next 5 years. The numbers you see in blue are numbers we can measure, that we have confidence in the measurement. After that, you'll see that for residential customer growth rates starting in fiscal year 20, we went to the, Armando help me, the population estimate, growth estimate? Consensus forecast, thank you. I never can remember that term. At 1.6%, and then we felt it was prudent to project growth at about 1% after that. You talk to a lot of folks, we've been in a good run here, a recession's out there somewhere, so we didn't want the model to show more cash coming in due to connection fees than may happen, so it is conservative in those last 2 years. We also did it for multifamily growth rate. You can see they're fairly high, particularly maintaining about a 4.5% growth rate in fiscal 20. That's due to what we can see on the books, a lot of projects you guys have seen. And then again, going to the consensus forecast and slowing down to 1%. We also model the Washoe County customer growth rate because they're nearing their capacity and we have not renegotiated that agreement as of yet. We basically put them at a de minimis growth rate just to be prudent until we know. Those customers to the north are Sparks customers. They pay our connection fee. It is an important financing mechanism, so the model is a little conservative with what the input from the Washoe County growth may be. Just to give the commission a feeling for what those growth rates mean, we included how many new single-family homes would be built in those years and how many residential units. Just as a note, we ran some numbers in November. We continue to, our single-family growth rate at the building department is down about 30% this year from last year. So we may not hit that number in fiscal 19-20 that we thought we would. Hopefully things will pick up in the spring and they'll fall back in line with these projections. Storm drain's much simpler, like I said, not as complex of a system, just basically 5 items to put in and then let the model run. So we ended up coming to the council with 5 scenarios for their consideration. The first scenario was, of course, you got to do nothing and show that we run out of cash in about 2 years with this big CIP we have. Scenario 2 was a minimum needs. Standard TUMWRF enhanced nitrogen removal construction cost share at 31.37%, a 15% connection fee increase, and a 2.96% rate increase to the user rates, the ones that we all pay. When I say standard TUMWRF enhanced nitrogen construction cost share at 31.37, an argument can be made that we, the city of Sparks, due to our growth, is starting to consume the capacity at TUMWRF at a faster rate than Reno's growing. Most of their growth is in South Reno. It goes to the South Truckee Meadows plant. The Verdi expansion will come to TUMWRF, but they don't have as much future growth projection as we do. So we thought it prudent that we model it, one, at the standard split. Our partner may not need to participate at the same rate. So you'll see in scenario 3, we assume that Sparks would pay for 50% of that enhanced nitrogen project. That was modeled with a 40% connection fee increase and a 2.96% user rate. Scenario 4 was all Sparks. We pay for the entire $30 million facility and move forward with treating nitrogen. That required 105% connection fee increase using a 2.96% user rate. Staff went into this model asking for a user rate increase to our citizens based on inflation. That's where the 2.96% comes from. And then scenario 5 was came in a request to look at moving these connection fee increases, spreading them out over 5 years. So we assumed the 50-50 cost share on the advanced nitrogen treatment and spread the connection fees out at 15% increase each year, using, again, that 2.96% user rate increase. Then the council considered each of those scenarios. We had a really good discussion, and they came back and said, we'd like you to model a 5% utility user rate increase from July 1st of 19 through July 1st of 22nd, and to increase connection fees by 30%. The council felt that the users should bear a little more cost of it because the majority of the flow coming to TUMWRF is existing users. We did model that. That became scenario 3A. So it is a version of scenario 3, the 50-50 based cost share on the advanced nitrogen treatment. It assumed a January 1st connection fee increase of 30%, which they did ultimately approve, an annual sewer and storm user fee increase of 5%. All of the parameters used in scenario 3 were the same in scenario 3A, with the biggest one of those being resetting the multifamily class up to the same as single family. These are the model inputs that went in. Unless you have questions, I'll just kind of fly through these. Same for the storm drain. The only change to the CIP, you'll see the big blue arrow. Instead of $9.41 million, which would have been the 31.37%, this is modeled at $15 million. You can see the effects as modeled to the user rates. For single family in fiscal 18, those were $35.49. These are per month. We're used to seeing quarterly data. I broke them into months for simplicity. You can see the effect of the user rate increase. By 23, that will become $41.98 per month to our users. Multifamily, you can see the big jump where the big blue circle is. That's the year we reset them. So fiscal 20, they will reset to single family, and then they will be the same as a single family. And then on commercial, just in case you're wondering how we do commercial, we read their water meter data from Tumwharf and charge them per 1,000 gallons of domestic water used. And then, so for instance, in fiscal year 20, they will be charged $6.32 per 1,000 gallons of domestic water use. Connection fees. The council did approve a 30% bump. You see that in fiscal 19. And then they will index at the rate of the construction cost index, the 5-year average. Thereon, we had to estimate what that 5-year average is. And by fiscal 23, our connection fees in total, including sewer, storm drain, and the flood user fee, will be $8,400 as compared to where they were in fiscal 18 of $5,991. It is a substantial increase. All of us probably here, growth needs to pay for itself. I think the council made a decision that does put a fair share burden. We broke those costs off for new growth. It is a substantial change to connection fees, but it is growth paying its fair share. I provided the cash flow models that you can see where they model out. Keep in mind, if you did review this, or if you will in the future, that for the first 2 years, it's pretty tight. Then all of your assumptions start catching up with you in those last 3 years. Did you get the projected connection fees? Did we grow at those rates? So it's the best we can do. It's the best information we can provide to the council for a decision. But please remember, it is a model predicting the future. I gave them to you for the sewer operating fund, the sewer capital fund, the storm drain fund. These were the findings we presented to the council for 3A. We did do public outreach, of which is the reason that we're here tonight. We did meet with our Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee in September, the AGC in October, the Builders Association Northern Nevada in November, and then of course the Spark Citizens Advisory Committee in November, and basically presented the same information. Council did take action on December 10th by approving Bill 2753, which was an amendment to code, Chapter 13 of our code. It did increase our user rates for both sewer and storm drain by 5% annually from July 1st of 2019 through July 1st of 2020. It did reset multifamily rates back up to equal with single-family rates beginning July 1st of this year. The connection fees were increased by 30% on January 1st of this year. And we did increase storm drain connection fees by 2.96%. That was our estimate of inflation on January 1st. And then they did agree to continue to index the connection fees annually beginning January 1st of next year. And that is my presentation, and I'm sure you have some questions. I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, John. Did the commission have any questions or comments on the study? Mr. Vanderwell.
First of all, I'm going to say thank you very much. I appreciate you coming. I think it's important, especially, I know Commissioner Fewens had said that he had a client come in to ask about it, and I think that the more information we have or know where to direct our community, I think is better.
Thank you, Commissioner Vanderwell.
Thank you, Commissioner Vanderwell. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Reed.
Quick comment. I'm very impressed with the amount of work that went into this study, and so I'd like to thank you and staff for putting this together. I think it's very informative, and I really think that you guys did a really outstanding job on putting it together. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Any other comments or questions? John, I had a couple questions. So we have an increase coming into effect for sewer rate customers. I'm a residential customer. What does that mean for my bill?
Let's go back.
$2.
Yeah.
So, of course, we pay quarterly, so you got to multiply these numbers by 3, but for me, it's easier to look at a monthly fee. So if you remember your bill from fiscal year 18, by fiscal year 23, you will have gone from $35.49 a month to $41.98 a month. So let's call it $6.
Per quarter?
Yep, per month increase.
Oh, per month, okay.
So 18 a quarter.
What's that percentage? increase?
You gotta make me get my calculator out.
That's okay. You can follow up. I was just kind of curious, just for, the public watching, what does that mean? The other question I had is, obviously I appreciate the city's efforts to maintain its permit in the Truckee River and help our friends downstream and protect the Queewee and the LCT and Pyramid Lake. Does the city, I know the city council's been, and the regional partners have been negotiating with Story County and the industrial park on selling effluent. Does any of that have anything to do with our
It
sewer?
it absolutely does. So you're speaking to the effluent use agreement that we've done with Trick?
Yeah.
The pipeline is looking like it's getting closer to being a reality. That agreement calls for 4,000 acre feet annually to be discharged or actually supplied by Tumwharf to Trick in the form of treated effluent. 4,000 acre feet in a year, if you kind of annualize it per month, reduces our nitrogen discharge to the Truckee River by roughly 60 to 70 pounds, depending on which concentration you look at per day. So it will have a meaningful effect. It is not, it's a tool in the solution to Tumwharf, but it's not the solution. It will certainly help.
Okay. And just the comment that I would make, certainly, I think over the last several years, we have seen increases in sewer rates. And I appreciate the city council and staff for being proactive and trying to get ahead of the infrastructure that's needed to accommodate growth. But I know Tumwa just looked at doing, they were looking at doing a rate increase. They deferred that this year. I was just looking at my NV Energy bill and I saw the filing from the PUC that natural gas rates are going way up and coming up this year. So I would encourage the staff, and I know you do anyway, continue to look at ways to keep the costs low for the residents. I've heard comments from folks, that growth doesn't pay for itself. And I think with, we're looking at expanding the sewer treatment plant. And we don't want that growth to be passed on to the residents if it's not needed. So please keep the sewer rates low, I guess, is the comment that I would make, if you can. Any other comments or questions? Okay, this one didn't require any action. Okay.
Informational only.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to item number 11. That's public comment. Do we have any members of the public, or did our member of the public want to provide a public comment? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. We'll bring it back to the commission, to item number 12. That's comments from commissioners. Did the commissioners wish to make any comments? I just had just one real quick comment. I wanted to extend my congratulations to Steve Driscoll on his retirement. He's going to be retiring as city manager later this month. I wanted to thank Steve publicly for his service to the community and look forward to him and his wife Carol. I hope they have a great retirement. So thank you, Steve, for your service. And I also wanted to extend a congratulations to our new city manager, Mr. Neil Kreutz, who will be filling in or have some big shoes to fill. And I look forward to working with Neil and the staff in the coming years. So any other comments from commissioners? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to number 13. That's adjournment. I will call this meeting adjourned at 7:03 p.m. Thank you.